The true meaning of our 8-hour workday. So, here I am, back to the grind of a 9-to-5 life. I had a freelance gig that was bringing in high income in the engineering field. It seemed like after 9 months of travel, my life was back to normal. During those 9 months, I lived differently, so returning to this 9-to-5 lifestyle has helped me realize something I hadn't noticed before. Since taking on this job, I've been more cautious about money. Not foolishly so, just quicker to pull money out of my wallet. A small example of this is buying expensive coffee, even though they can't compare to the perfect New Zealand flat white, and I don't get to enjoy it in a sunny patio cafe. When I'm not here, I'm less frivolous with spending. It's not about big, extravagant expenses, but rather the small, habitual ones for things that don't add much value to my life. Yet, in reality, I won't be paid for another 2 weeks. In retrospect, I've always done this when I've had a good job, spending freely during the flush times. After spending 9 months living off savings, I find it hard not to notice this phenomenon. I suppose I spend money this way because now, a certain status has returned to me. I continue to work a high-paying job, and this allows me to reach a certain level of extravagance. There's a strange sense of power in spending a couple of 20s without much thought. Exercising that spending power feels quite empowering, especially when you know the money will grow back soon enough. And my behavior isn't unique. Others seem to be doing something similar. In fact, I think I'm just returning to the typical consumer mindset after a period of temporary departure. One of the most surprising discoveries from my travels is that every month abroad, even in countries more expensive than Canada, I spend less money than when I was on a 9-to-5 job back home. I have more free time, visit some of the world's greatest sites, meet new people, find peace, and on the flip side, I create memorable experiences. Yet somehow, that life costs me less money than the modest 9-to-5 lifestyle in this, the least expensive city in Canada. It seems like my money goes further during my time traveling. Why could that be? The unnecessary spending lifestyle has been intentionally constructed and nurtured within the community, thanks to large corporations. Companies in every industry thrive on the trend of careless spending among the populace. They constantly seek ways to stimulate habitual or unnecessary spending. In the documentary film The Corporation, a marketing psychologist discusses one of the methods she uses to increase sales. Her team conducted a study on the influence of children's nagging behavior on parents' likelihood to spend money on buying toys for them. They discovered that 20 to 40% of toy purchases wouldn't have occurred if the children hadn't nagged. The same goes for 1 out of every 4 visits to theme parks. The results of the study serve the purpose of directly promoting products to children, encouraging them to demand adults to buy things for them. This marketing campaign alone represented millions of dollars spent on completely discretionary needs. You can manipulate consumers into wanting your product, and then they will buy your product. It's a game. Lucy Hughes, co-creator of The Nag Factor. This is just a small example of something that has been happening for a very long time. Large companies don't make money by earnestly promoting the good values their products bring. They do so by creating a culture where hundreds of millions of people buy much more than they actually need and spend money to chase away feelings of dissatisfaction in life. We buy things to make ourselves happier, to keep up with those around us, to fulfill the adult world vision we had as children, to broadcast our status to the world, and for many other psychological reasons. Buying things often has little to do with the usefulness of the item. How many items in your home have you not used in the past year? The optimal tool for corporations to maintain this culture is to elevate the concept of a 40-hour workweek to a normal lifestyle. Under these working conditions, People can only arrange their lives around evenings and weekends. This arrangement naturally leads us to spend heavily on entertainment and convenience items because our leisure time is so limited. I've only returned to work for a few days, but I've already noticed that many healthy activities are falling by the wayside: walking, exercising, reading, meditating, or writing. A commonality among these activities is that they cost almost nothing but time. Suddenly, I have more money but less time, meaning I share more similarities with a typical North American worker than I did a few months ago. When I'm abroad, I won't hesitate to spend the whole day wandering in a national park or spend a few hours reading on the beach. Now, just thinking about those activities feels wrong. Choosing one of them to do is enough to consume a precious weekend day for me. After work, when I get home, I don't feel like exercising. After dinner or before bed or even upon waking up, I don't feel like exercising, and that's all the time I have on regular days. This seems to come with a simple solution: work less to have more free time. I've proven to myself that I can live fully, feeling satisfied with less money than I'm currently making. Unfortunately, this is almost impossible in my industry, as well as in most other professions. You work 40+ hours, or you don't work at all. The standard workday culture is so firmly entrenched in the minds of both clients and my employers that demanding they not contact me after 1 p.m. is unrealistic, even after I've convinced my boss otherwise. The 8-hour workday was developed during the Industrial Revolution in England in the 19th century, as a rest for factory workers who were being exploited to work 14 or 16 hours a day. As technology and methods improved, workers in all industries could produce more value in less time. You would think this would lead to shorter workdays. But the 8-hour workday still generates too much profit for big businesses, not because of the amount of work completed in 8 hours. The actual amount of work done by an average office worker is less than 3 hours out of an 8-hour day, but because it creates a happy, shopping-friendly public. Keeping free time scarce means people pay a lot more for convenience, satisfaction, and anything else that feels good in the moment. It ensures that even when outside of work, they're too busy to be ambitious. We've been led into a culture engineered to leave us tired, craving nurturing, willing to pay a lot for convenience and entertainment, and most importantly, vaguely dissatisfied with life so that we continue to seek out what we don't have. We buy a lot because we always feel like we're missing something. Western economies, especially the United States, are built on a carefully calculated system of reward, addiction, and unnecessary spending. We spend money to celebrate, to solve problems, to elevate our status, and to alleviate boredom. Can you imagine what would happen if everyone stopped buying all the useless, short-lived items? All the pressing issues in America, including obesity, depression, pollution, and corruption, are the consequences of creating and sustaining a multi-billion-dollar economy. To keep the economy healthy, America needs to maintain an unhealthy state. Healthy, happy people don't feel the need for what they don't have, so they don't buy as much unnecessary stuff, don't need as much entertainment, and thus, don't watch as many ads. The 8-hour workday culture is the most powerful tool of large corporations in keeping people in a dissatisfied state. In this state, the solution to any problem is to buy something. You might have heard of Parkinson's law, related to the use of time. The more time you're given to do something, the more time you'll spend doing it. It's surprising how much work you can accomplish in 20 minutes if you're only given 20 minutes. But if you have the whole afternoon, chances are you'll take longer to complete it. For money, most of us behave similarly. The more we earn, the more we spend. It's not that an increase in income leads us to suddenly need more, it's simply because we can. I don't think running away from the entire ugly system and living in the woods, Pretending to be deaf and mute is necessary. But clearly, we can do better when we understand what commerce wants us to become. They've worked for decades to create millions of ideal customers, and they've succeeded. Unless you're a true outlier, your lifestyle has already been predetermined. A perfect customer is someone who, although dissatisfied, lives with hope, lacks serious ambition for personal development, is glued to the screen, works full-time, earns decent money, indulges in leisure time, and somehow manages to make ends meet. Is that you? I could have confidently answered no just 2 weeks ago, that wasn't me. But if all my weeks were like what happened this week, that might be a far-fetched thought. Have you ever wondered whether life is worth living? Albert Camus, a French philosopher, writer, and journalist, made significant contributions to the development of a philosophical system known as absurdism. To delve into Camus' important ideas, one cannot overlook one of his most outstanding works, The Myth of Sisyphus. The central essay in this work revolves around the portrait of a character from mythology, Sisyphus, the king of Ephyra, now Corinth. Sisyphus was notorious for his cunning tricks, having twice escaped death, leading to Zeus condemning him to eternal punishment, rolling a boulder up a steep hill, only for it to roll back down, and Sisyphus having to roll it up again. This laborious task repeats endlessly, never reaching a conclusion. Camus explores the myth of Sisyphus as an allegory to demonstrate that life is inherently meaningless and absurd, yet, despite this, it should be regarded as a challenge. Sisyphus becomes a symbol for humanity at large. His punishment symbolizes the actions we undertake in life. Our actions are as meaningless and futile as Sisyphus rolling the boulder. This may sound horrifying, a life devoid of anything but despair, but according to Camus, we should imagine Sisyphus happy. He writes, "I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain. One always finds one's burden again." But Sisyphus teaches the higher fidelity that negates the gods and raises rocks. He too concludes that all is well. This universe henceforth without a master seems to him neither sterile nor futile. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of that night-filled mountain, in itself forms a world. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Sisyphus is happy because he has accepted the punishment imposed upon him. Sisyphus understands that he must roll the boulder up, and when the deed is done, standing atop the hill, he experiences a fleeting moment of happiness. He anticipates having that happiness again. From imagining Sisyphus happy, we realize the irony of life. Only when we acknowledge the absurdity can we transcend it, striving towards some form of happiness. Camus begins the story by affirming that the most serious philosophical question is whether to commit suicide, with all other questions ranking second. Every day, millions of people ask themselves whether life is worth living. Camus' concern lies in this question. There is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Judging whether life is or is not worth living amounts to answering the fundamental question of philosophy. All the rest, whether or not the world has 3 dimensions, whether the mind has 9 or 12 categories, comes afterwards. These are games. One must first answer. Camus argues that suicide leads to the acknowledgement that, after all, life is not worth living. And this confession is related to the feeling of the absurd. Overall, humans traverse life with the baggage of perceiving meaning and purpose, seeking reasons and goodness in their endeavors. But sometimes actions and everyday thoughts can be driven by various factors, turning a meaningful life into one entirely absurd and futile. Camus is interested in whether the idea that life is meaningless necessarily implies that life is not worth living and that suicide is the solution to the absurdity. He suggests that we should not entertain such a lack of clarity of thought. The notion that there are only two outcomes, living or suicide, is too simplistic an answer to this question. Most people continue to live because they have not come to a definite answer to this question. There are too many contradictions between human understanding and action. Those who commit suicide may have been sure that life has meaning, and many who feel life is not worth living still continue to live. In the face of meaningless existence, what prevents us from suicide? Camus offers a possibility. Our instinct for survival is stronger than the rationales for suicide. We form the habit of living before acquiring the habit of thinking. We instinctively avoid confronting the full consequences of life's absurd, calling this evasion action, often expressed as hope. By hoping for another life or hoping to find some meaning in this life, we postpone facing the consequences of life's irrational, meaningless nature. In the essay, Camus wants us to confront the consequences of the absurd. He argues that, yes, life is meaningless, absurd, yet we can rebel, struggle against the absurdity, and find happiness. Fundamentally, Camus poses the question, is there a third option, between 1, accepting the absurdity of life and 2, denying it by clinging to vague metaphysical affirmations, believing in some divine or higher purpose that reason cannot apprehend, which Camus sees as a form of philosophical suicide? In other words, can we live without clinging to hope for a meaningful life yet without carrying the despair that leads to suicide? The stark contrast shows that this third option has emerged. We can persevere. Continuing to live without faith, without hope, without any call. We must imagine Sisyphus happy. The world is vast, life is long, and there are many men out there. Last time, I talked about how getting a good husband or having a happy marriage is entirely about one's own effort and mindset, not luck. Many argue that while getting a good husband may be about oneself, falling into a good marital family is definitely luck. So today, I continue this discussion. Firstly, I need to clarify a viewpoint that determines my lifestyle and mindset, that is, I believe in luck, but I believe luck is more about what we create for ourselves. Everyone has similar chances of encountering luck and misfortune in life. Luck and luck created by oneself differ in that luck created by oneself is something we can completely control. Let me give you an example. I've never won anything, but my friend DNGU I always wins giveaways. The difference between me and him? It's not that he's lucky and I'm not. It's because he actively participates in giveaways, while I never do. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? DNG's luck is created by himself, by participating heavily in giveaways, thus increasing his chances of winning. I never win simply because I don't participate, or only participate very little, so of course, I never win anything. For him, winning giveaways also requires a lot of effort. Returning to the main point of this article, then how can one fall into a good marital family? I'm not talking about previous generations because circumstances and lifestyles were vastly different, and I don't have enough knowledge to judge. But in my generation, in the generation of those who read the nonsense I write on Facebook, surely it can't be a matter of meeting a couple of times and then getting married, right? So during the process of getting to know each other, interacting with your boyfriend's family, wouldn't you notice something? This is why I hate the saying being smart and beautiful is no match for luck. Smart people would never say that. During the process of getting to know each other, do your values align? I'm sure your boyfriend's values are mostly shaped and influenced by his family upbringing. A man who respects women surely didn't grow up in a family that favors males over females. Don't confuse values with personality. Many people focus on personality traits, family background, and job, but forget what truly bonds us for lasting relationships: core values. For example, my core values are honesty, kindness, equality, with family and children being top priorities. So when I meet someone with the same values, my husband, even if our upbringing and personalities differ, our jobs may be unrelated, we can still love, understand, and marry each other happily. I remember once I asked, if our child participated in a competition where the first place offers a very good future opportunity, and our child came in second place, only 0.5 points behind. Could you intervene to change the result? My husband didn't hesitate to answer, no. If our child misses this opportunity, there will be other chances. I can't deprive another child's opportunity and effort because of that. That's also the answer in my mind because our shared values of honesty and kindness match. A man like him surely wasn't raised by deceitful, cruel, selfish parents, right? I only officially met my in-laws 2 to 3 times before deciding to marry because I lived far away, but I completely trust that they share the same values as me and my family, based on what I've seen in my husband over 4 years of dating and a few interactions with my in-laws. My family and my husband's family may differ in many ways, but the core values I mentioned earlier are identical. Personality may change over time or circumstance, but core values are usually steadfast. An ex-boyfriend once told me a story. His mother has 5 or 7, can't remember, sisters, and their families live very close to each other, so any girlfriend of his would have to pass through the scrutiny of all 5 or 7 of them. Oh my, why bother? My parents didn't raise me to be judged by others. I grew up studying and cultivating myself, not to please someone else just to become a daughter-in-law or to earn the love of their son. Let me add, this guy is very gentle, cooks well, and treats me very well. But the main issue here is his attitude when telling me that story, one of agreement. So for him, it's natural for his wife to be scrutinized and judged, and it's her responsibility to please his family, otherwise, life would be difficult. Of course, I didn't run away immediately, but when I heard that story, I determined this man would only be for love, not marriage. I'm not saying it's wrong for others to marry such men. As long as they're happy, there's nothing wrong. I didn't marry him because I knew for sure I wouldn't be happy. Our values and his family's values don't match. The love between us only existed for a few months, or even years, but our family values have existed for decades. So what's easier to let go of? If something doesn't feel right, why force it? Remember, the world is vast, life is long, and there are many men out there. We always have a choice. Don't let age pressure, family pressure, or the glamorous appearance of someone force you to blindly step forward. As I always say, if you feel uneasy while in love, even if you don't know why, it's best to run away. Because unease means something is definitely wrong somewhere. Run away, and when you calm down, then reconsider. Small postscript. Before getting married, many people ridiculed my viewpoint with phrases like just get married and you'll see, or flirting is different from marriage. Men flirt a lot, but when they marry, their true nature reveals. It's almost been 10 years since we've lived together, from dating to marriage to having a child. I still haven't seen where my viewpoint is wrong. Let's assume I'm celebrating too early, but I believe if anything goes wrong in the future, a large part of it will be my own fault. No one deceived me, there's no luck involved, and certainly not men are always bad while women are always miserable. If you want to control your life, you must first admit your responsibility and mistakes.